from 2022. So we still have a number of audits. I mean, this is just an example. It's not the actual numbers, but we have agencies that are in compliance monitoring. So we were going to gauge, how that number goes down. And then on the right-hand side, that pie chart would be the number of open audits in 2023. And that could show you, so hopefully the one on the left will be going down and the one on the right goes up. And then the two bar charts on the bottom, so that would be agencies receiving final determinations by month. And then the one on the right would be agencies and in compliance monitoring by month.
But if you hover over the one bar after, it doesn't tell you any further information. It tells you the number.
Quick question. This dashboard is gonna be in one page, or you're gonna have,
It should be on one page.
because this tells the people, like, for the public, why is this information important to them? And not the utilization charts that we had in the report. Because I find that we get bogged down into this is what we do, but what we do, the importance of the work that we do is the significance that it has to the city and to the workforce. So shouldn't we explain, like, the graphics that we had in that report were so telling that if I were the public, that will say more to the public of, we are the engine that we collect these, but we analyze this data and look what we found. And that would be more telling, or is that the,
So this is more like
this is
insider baseball
information,
operation.
yeah, operational
Which
thing.
is important, it's like just like
Yeah.
getting a snapshot operationally. But then the more important is making some of our research
Yes,
more user friendly by like even just having that graph that's on that report
yes,
where you roll over it tells you how many women, how many men.
that's
how
what I
many,
think.
age, how many- that's-
Because this is very good for when you do your internal meetings and you see this, and operationally, this is what we're doing. But the significance of what we do is not that we had final determinations of this other determination. The significance is that we found that there are these disparities in utilization, that this, that, and the other. That sends the message of, listen, what we do, Jesus, these people are always finding the most impressive things that you guys do every single day. So that's my thing, because I look at this and I'm like, that's,
Then is it, how we have corrective actions on certain
people,
characteristics or
On the standards,
standards.
yeah.
Correct, some standards. Whichever X number of standards, but it's impossible to glean some information so that it's standard X, whether they have an EEO compliance officer.
Yeah.
Not met X%. Because I know you.
Available to the public?
uh,
I'm not sure if
no,
I'm
no,
comfortable.
And I'm just talking.
Yeah, I can provide that information for the board. It would require a lot of record keeping on our end, because that's not how we currently track things in terms of percentages and comparison against agency. We look at the agency in its entirety as a separate audit from the other agencies. But I wouldn't be comfortable putting that on public because it undermines our mission to when we tell the agencies, this is not punitive, this is preventative, we're trying to help you. And by splashing up their situation.
I wouldn't use identifiers. I would just say, if someone, asks the question, let's say, I don't think this is the number, but let's say we have 28 standards that we audit against.
Mhm.
And we wanted to know, that standard number 17 was certain, policies emailed to everyone. And, generally, agencies do really well at this, at like maybe 90%. Like answering that kind of, and what standard do agencies do less well on? And what standards do agencies do better on? Are like very answerable questions that just get to the health of, EEPC audit compliance without identifying the specific agency.
If they're not identified, then that's what's being included in the local law 13 reports, because they have the table, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Corrective actions issued.
Yeah, the local, they wanted more information,
Yeah.
that graph can link to the actual report.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to add, we currently put the 5 most issued corrective actions in the annual report, and we do list the agencies. So that has been, I know that's something we were thinking about changing this year, but for the last 2 or 3 years, I do run the 5 top corrective actions that were issued for that year and the agencies who were assigned that corrective action. So that has been in the report for the last 3 or 4 years.
So even something like, maybe with updates, but even something like that, top 5, how the public advocate does, the city's worst landlords? Not that I'm proposing
Yeah.
the city's worst agencies, not at all, but like something where, you get the general gist of it from a top line headline. So top 5 corrective actions for 2023. Were they different from the top 5 correction actions for 2023? And it's just, a visual that will help people at least get a sense of some aspect of the EEPC,
And also,
work.
we have to be aware of the inside language, because saying, final determination, I learned about that here. If you had opened that, I would be like, how is that significant in my life? It's what I want to know as the user of whatever, right? That's why we go. So the language needs to be defined, legends, and the findings is what we find that is important to me. I always get attracted to the findings, because even if it is that we do this, but we do it in the way that the chair is saying, that it's like, what did we find? And continuity, for instance, continuity of EEO is a problem that now you're discovering that is worth saying. We noticed that 40% of the, I don't know, that's exaggeration. 40% of the EEO officers, when they discontinue, creates these problems to the agency. So now the EEO officers that read that, now they know that they need to find something. If the chair reads it, she'll be like, oh, gee, this lady's leaving, I need to have a plan. So things that tell the story that we want to tell. I don't think that this tells the story of the amazing work that you guys do. That is really amazing. So I want to say that.
Or like pique the interest. I find it very telling with the different meetings that we're having with people, who are commissioners and executive directors, how, sometimes when we reference our research, we're like, oh, I didn't know. I'll make sure I read the report afterwards.
Yeah.
But like almost, if you have a quick visual to say, look, this is like a top line takeaway, but so you can get what the takeaway is, but if you want to learn more, read the report, because people may not necessarily have all the time to read the report.
Where will this be on the website?
So that I was gonna stick in the new section that we're calling audits.
Okay. And you said we can only get these 2 colors, right?
Well, we get 2 colors, any colors.
Oh, okay, just the 2 columns.
Yeah, we only have 2 columns of data, so it really limits us.
But you said colors too, we can't do.
And 2 colors, yeah.
I
And
don't understand the 2 color part. I understand.
Yeah, because if you add another data point, that should automatically produce another color in the chart to differentiate.
but I think Jane's point is we can't add
We
data.
only have 2.
And the other stuff you're talking about in terms of scrolling over, the technology the city allows for doing this is very limited. So a lot of those types of features will not even be an
I was
option.
gonna say that.
So we are like 1980.
Yeah.
This is like 1999 dashboard.
Whoever did this, kudos to them.
No,
You know, kudos to
this
them.
is all that can be done. No,
Yes.
we could do more, but
We don't have OTPS to like get outside. Oh, my gosh.
Even if we did, we're still
It's do
bound
it.
by the rules of do it.
Yeah, you gotta do
We're on
it,
the
do
city's
it.
website,
Yeah.
and they would not allow us to put a dashboard up, but we would have to link it. So that's the only way we could do it.
Oh,
This is WordPress?
I don't know.
No, this is, so it's in the SharePoint.
This is their point.
okay.
Thank you. Next, we have section G, COIB annual disclosures.
I'll take that one. It's just a very brief reminder that the COIB annual disclosures for policymakers of agencies have to be done every year. I will be providing a list of names and email addresses that they'll be using to contact you when the time comes. It is required. Failure to complete the disclosures can result in daily fines. And I'm going to reach out to everyone, make sure I have the right email address on file, and that's about it. Just want to remind you it's happening.
See, that's the kind of language I want for community boards, right?
right.
What kind of email, just give me your email, I want to make sure we have the right email for you. You know, failure to comply, I don't know. So, but you know, that kind
Yeah.
of, that kind of.
Daily
We'll-
fines.
yeah.
Woo, woo.
And when is that, so that hasn't happened yet?
No.
I got an email from COIB that I have to provide a list of the policymakers, I think by the end of February. And then they do the actual, they publish a list of the names on their website, and then they do the actual disclosure documents with individually, which is done outside of our control. They reach out to you directly. So,
Next one is H, intro number 877, the exit interview legislation, which Commissioner Alcantara identified months ago as a need. to speed up.
well, I'll take this one. Earlier in the month, Chair, you had sent us an email saying that there was pending legislation in the city council that would require exit interviews. So I just pulled up that legislation. You asked for it to be part of our conversation today. I pulled up the legislation. Right now, it has been introduced and it has been referred to the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. That was just done at the January 19th New York City Council meeting. So it's still in its infancy, but basically it requires DCAS to develop an exit survey to provide to all agencies. Agencies have to administer it to anyone who's leaving city service or retiring, and then provide that data and that feedback to DCAS, who will then create reports on the yearly for the city council to review. That's it in a nutshell. There's a lot more nuances as to what needs to be in the report and the timing, et cetera, but that's kind of the gist of the legislation that's currently pending.
Can you work on testimony? If upon reading the legislation, if you feel that we can add any value in terms of what should be asked, or if we have a different take on how they're approaching this, perhaps then we anticipate a hearing on this, which is likely, and then prepare testimony beforehand so the EPC can weigh in on how to improve this legislation, how to ask certain things that may help inform what it is we do. Audits or research. What we do.
And I would say to add questions about where is this going to be housed and how is it going to be accessible and such, like what is this going to be in ICAPS, like what's the IT infrastructure going to be? And I'm glad that you said surveys, Jen, because it says interviews, and I was actually curious, are they like mandating an actual face-to-face person like with your HR, or is it going to be a survey that you're filling out? I wasn't clear.
It's not, yeah, it's not very clear, but I don't know.
Yeah.
At the MPA, in construction and development, it's mandatory and you cannot submit the survey. You need to go through the survey with the interviewer. Like, just do this, no, you need to see, unless, some things are like.
Your manager, usually like with your manager.
No, it was the HR person.
HR, okay.
HR, Yeah, because looking at your manager and being like,
I'm leaving anyway.
I'm burning all my bridges here and that's it.
I mean, not saying you suck, but I'm sure that won't be a question, but like,
No, but they.
It'll be a
there's
response,
lot of
yeah.
questions that you can say all you
Mhm.
want in the
Okay,
thing.
so yeah,
So yeah,
But HR, I thought that it was very effective to have HR. And I know that there's paranoia because some of my friends, when I was leaving, they were like, remember, that will be in your file. And it's like, oh, please. But I find it to be a very effective tool for the managers, because people give you honest feedback.
Right.
And you can take it as a wrong thing, but in my agency, they take away the names.
I was
And,
just gonna-
and show me this is what people say about this, that, and the other, which he used a lot to create new policies or new changes or new whatever. So it's very useful.
I think that the report that's anticipated to be created by DCAS in the legislation is going to be more of that kind of collective.
I think.
This is what we've been seeing in terms of feedback as to why people are leaving and how long they've been with the city and, is it a personnel thing? Is it a cost of living thing? Whatever it may be. There's a bunch of criteria already set
It's
forth.
very good.
if we can look at it from an EEPC lens, and see
Yeah.
what kind of additional questions or what kind of reframe the reshape questions can help us with some of our concerns around
And also,
retention and diversity and promotion and equity. inclusion.
I see the universities always provide amicus briefs, whatever that means. So what I understand is like a thing supporting.
It's a friend of the court is what it's actually.
Okay, well,
It means you have some interest that you're not a party, but you wanna weigh in.
okay. So is that, if the testimony doesn't work, can we do one of those? Saying we support these and whatever. I don't know how, I see it all the time because I used to work for Columbia and other universities, that whenever legislation goes into effect, they file an amicus briefs. The president sends something. And it's very effective because they will gang up together and do it at
Yes.
this
This
university
is
and the
something
other.
similar.
Why is that
It's
similar?
Testimony,
Okay,
because we, that we probably would be alongside city agencies, then there could be another panel after us that on the same topic, they might have unions,
oh,
then
nice.
there might be another panel after us or them that may have some academics, or think tanks.
Oh, nice.
We already did section 5, next section 6, research update, subsection A, 2022 CUNY Community Colleges report.
So you all received the draft a few weeks ago. We received brief feedback from Vice Chair Reese and from the Chair, Chair Bonilla. Thank you very much for your feedback. It was very helpful. We met with CUNY remotely on Monday of this week. Their comments weren't extensive in terms of, there weren't a lot of them, but some of them were quite substantial in terms of what feedback they had. So we're still in conversation with them to figure out how to adjust the report accordingly. I think the amount of work involved, we're talking about a matter of a few weeks. It won't be months and months. So hopefully we'll be able to finalize a draft within 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. They expressed concerns about some of the recommendations, and so we're trying to work with them in a way that's mutually beneficial for both parties.
Did they have a disagreement with the methods, or did they have a disagreement with the data?
No, because the data is provided by them. And this is actually a point that I'm going to make when I respond in writing to your comments, that we're much more limited in what we have. We don't have, for example, the promotions or hiring data that we do for the city. And so we're much more restricted in what we can do. But part of these conversations is also to explore what data we can get in the future for the next report.
Any discussion on this much? Subsection B, 2023 local law 13 report on city's workforce.
So we're going to share a draft with Jean, our executive director, tomorrow. So I'm hopeful if the revisions are not too extensive, that you would have something before the next commission meeting.
Section 7, subsection A, The Employment Advisory Committee meeting, summary of the January meeting.
So we may, but I just, Chair, just wanted to mention that for the audit update, we didn't really do A. I just,
Oh,
We
pardon
can
me, I'm
read.
sorry. Yeah, so let's do, the summary of the January meeting, and then we'll go back and read the status of 2022, AP and 2023.
okay, so for the, January meeting, we had, a guest speaker, Jacqueline E. Banks, who is the executive director of the New York City Commission on Gender Equity. And she and Commissioner Pinnock provided updates to the committee on the mayor's pay equity cabinet. She basically gave, an outline of some of the history and, how complicated the city's title system is. There are 2,000 titles with over 800, of those are competitive. There are separate bargaining agreements and there are step plans on an employee's anniversary. So she basically said that a person's pay is unique. It's their unique story and it's tied to them. They're working in partnership with Office of Labor Relations and OMB. And basically, there's a pay equity cabinet. It's comprised of DCAS, OMB, and representatives from every deputy mayor's office. They talked a little bit about the executive order, forming the pay equity cabinet. And, I think it was Jacqueline Ebanks that said the key to the pay equity work is to build a sustainable approach to permanently eliminate the gaps. They need to look at cash compensation and the culture. They'll be looking at recruitment, retention, representation, promotions. During the course of the meeting, Chair Bonilla asked what role the EEPC could play. And Commissioner Pinnock felt that the EEPC's role would be one of advocacy, that they would need support and advocacy for the additional resources that they need to move the work forward. They talked about the bill, the 515 bill that we spoke about earlier today. They're getting a consultant. They're going to look at 15 to 20 titles. And they felt that that would be a good first step to create an action plan to address the issues. They would be releasing an RFP, I imagine, shortly. For the consultants to look at 15 to 20 titles.
Okay, good.
Mhm. And finally, they mentioned that GCAS has no enforcement authority. It's the agency head that has the real enforcement authority. They talked about the size of this project and in civil service. And that, you know, they would be looking at systemic change, you know, that would not be surprising to them that there would be a need for systemic change. And also mentioned at that meeting that City Council wants to pass legislation on exit interviews, but NICAPS does not have an exit interview feature, so it would have to be developed. And at that point, the representative of the CUNY Community Colleges mentioned that they have a consultant that handles their exit interviews, and they're going to be discussing that at our next Employment Advisory Committee meeting. So that'll be part of the agenda. That's really a summary of what happened at the meeting from my notes.
Thank you.
I was there. So cool.
Yeah.
This sounds familiar.
We have next section 5, returning back to subsection A on the status of 2022 and 2023 audits.
Just very briefly, I wanted to give you an overview, for the 2022 AP audits. You just voted on 5 of the resolutions for compliance monitoring. By the next meeting, which is scheduled for March 9th, I anticipate having an additional 15. And then thereafter, there's only a handful left, based upon their compliance monitoring end date. In terms of the 2023 audit, we have initiated 25 agencies. We'll be initiating 18 community boards in the spring. We released the PIQs, or preliminary interview questionnaires, today, and we're giving, as usual, the agencies 3 weeks to answer the questions and provide uploads. So we anticipate that we'll start drafting preliminary terminations for these audits in March, which is a few months earlier than we did last year, so hopefully that'll put us ahead of the game. One thing we did note, is that we've had a few agencies request an extension of the commencement of their audit because of lack of resources. We've asked them to put their requests in writing, explaining why. We have not received anything in writing yet. One of them is the Office of the Mayor requesting an extension due to their size of their EEO office. Again, we ask that they put the request in writing so that we have documentation as to why they're requesting it, how long they want the extension for, and we still haven't made any determinations as to whether or not those extensions will be granted. We want to work with the agencies. We understand that that there's limited resources, but at the same time, we have our deadlines, we have our timelines we have to meet, and to be in compliance for our own purposes, we have to initiate audits at a certain time. And I know for the Office of the Mayor, we already pushed back their initiation because they should have been audited last year, but because it was a new administration, we held off. So again, we haven't received anything in writing yet, so perhaps they are not pursuing that, but we have gotten a few agencies asking for us to delay start of their audits.
But just to supplement that, I just want to note that I sent the mayor's office a letter, an email, asking them to put their request in writing. They initially asked for September. We offered July 1, and I believe that's gonna be, they're gonna be agreeing to that. So that would be when we would start.
I think when we discussed it, we kind of tossed around the idea of unofficially starting it even earlier by providing opportunity to collect information and answer questions. And that way our analysts can get started on the actual findings in July, because otherwise it's going to put us too far behind.
Any,
I mean,
other than the obvious? That's the last agenda item. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Lord, seconded by Commissioner Yu. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, hearing none, we now have adjourned to go into executive session. I believe.
Thank
you. Adjourned completely. Let me know when the live stream is concluded.
Do we need to sign
Yeah, we have to
Yes.
find a bunch.
Okay,
Yeah.
you have all of these in the letters.
So I'm saying, do we have,
Michael?
do we have?
Which one
for
do we have to
executive session?
Okay, thank you.
We have things to discuss for executive session?
No, I don't think so. I put it as a placeholder in case something popped up the last minute. We weren't sure if we were going to discuss the Office of the Mayor's request in executive session or not, but we figured we should probably make it on public record.